Welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm here with Nate Hunterton, Army football player, Army linebacker. Of course, I'm Steve Anderson, our co-host here. Sal won't be on. He might be joining us in a minute. Just want to give a quick shout out to Higher Echelon. Higher Echelon is run by a former Army football player, Joe Ross, who was a coach of mine, Center for Enhanced Performance instructor for me. Great man. We want to thank them for the sponsorship and their continued support. So, but tonight, near and dear in my heart, right? Army linebacker, Nate. Thanks for joining us, and I appreciate you taking the time to kind of tell us your journey.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for having me on, and likewise, always good to connect with anybody in the brotherhood. But we know linebackers are special, so
that's right.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we had a couple names. We went from, I think when I started, we were the Shinebackers, and then we went to the Goon Squad. So we had a morph of Shinebackers, the Goon Squad.
Yeah.
While I was in the locker, or while I was in the linebacker room. You guys have a name for you guys?
No, I'm pretty old school, man. We're Mike, Will, a little bit of that, you know.
No, that was just no. We had Mike. I think we had Mike, Whip, Rover, and Sam, but that was just kind of like our facade, right? That's what we just called ourselves. So
So I played under Coach John Luce, great guy, and I thank him for the opportunity he gave me, and I love what he's doing now. But he wasn't super creative in that respect, and I don't remember him cutting a single meeting short to be like, "Hey, why don't you guys make up a cool name?" or anything like that. We were doing X's and O's.
Yeah. Well, hey, before we get into actually your time at Army football, can we kind of talk about what got you interested, or did you know about West Point before they started recruiting you, and just kind of get the backstory of how West Point ended up you attending United States Military Academy?
Yeah. So first piece of the puzzle, or sort of part of the story, which wasn't as linear as some are, but I was about 4 years old, and my grandfather, who lived probably about less than an hour from West Point, where my dad grew up, he took my brother and I there and was like, "Come on, guys, check it out. One of you's got to come here. You have to, right? You know, it's beautiful. It's this." He's a World War II veteran, and it was just one of those things you did with your grandpa. Like, I didn't file it away in terms of, all right, that's got to be on my list of colleges or whatever. But then Army football sent me a letter. It was kind of like the first one I got as a high school football player. And I was like, damn, that's cool, you know, and was immediately kind of engaged with the idea and excited about it. Mike Sullivan is the guy who recruited me. And I almost every year, I probably missed a few, but almost every year I sent him a text message on the same weekend that I visited, just saying, "Hey, thanks for doing the extra work that came all the way to Las Vegas to find me and giving me the opportunity to join the people that I did." So when that came around, it was one of those things. I always tell people when we get into this, like, as much as I probably fit that profile of, I just love the damn game. I grew up kind of loving all that Army stuff. You're going to have to talk me out of being Rambo or Chuck Norris or whoever it was. But the flip side was, man, there's probably a list of schools that if they had given me the offer, it would have been pretty tempting to go do that thing. This thing I knew more about, this thing I'd seen on TV or whatever. And I'm so glad it went the way it did, and Army was a great fit for me. And sometimes it takes perspective from different directions, and sometimes it takes a little time to see a story come together that way. But an absolute dream come true.
Nate, when you got that letter, was your grandfather still around? Did you get to share that moment and be like, "Hey, Gramps, check this out. Can you believe it?" Or that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. It brought me closer to him. I was kind of in the twilight of his life, so we didn't spend as much time together at that point as I would have liked to. But eternity has a funny way of working. And one of the things at his funeral, I gave him one of my jerseys and my appointment letter. And I know that was where they were meant to be, so yeah, just another sort of gift in a way. The universe will help things align, God will help things align. And, West Point and Army football was a big sort of triangle, the right things coming together for me.
Yeah, I know you mentioned Coach Sullivan, Mike Sullivan, and that's a pretty cool recruiting coordinator or recruiting coach to have.
Yeah,
Especially a guy that he's probably younger, and just man, I'm trying to. I've heard him speak, and we've met before. I'm just trying to think of the sales pitch. And how much excitement he got you coming, wanting to try it and at least give it a try now to go there. So that must have been pretty cool. And I think that's Nate. I think that's awesome. You send him a text, 90% of the time on that same weekend that you went up there on that visit. Now, did you know before going on your visit that this was a sure thing, and that was kind of just semantics, or did that visit solidify your decision on going there?
It really solidified it. And then I kind of got a push from another direction as well. So my final 3 schools were Hawaii, Yale, and West Point. And when I could tell anybody on earth that, and they would go, "Oh, no brainer." But everybody disagreed. Like, come on, how are you going to pass up on Yale? Come on, how can you not go to Hawaii? Look at it. But Hawaii had a coaching change. This was a little bit of a mess, whatever. And they were like, "Can you come this weekend? We see you doing this and all that." And that window just closed. So it was like, "Nope, actually, we're not inviting you on a visit. We're not giving an offer and all that." That window closed. And then I was going to visit West Point, and I think it was either on my way kind of out the door, or it might have even been when I was there. Like, I got a call that, "Hey, the way it works over here at admissions, we kind of stack rank guys, and we're not getting you in." So it was like, at that point, I knew I wasn't choosing between 3. It was like, okay, it's kind of binary, yes or no here. And then if it's no, I got to go create what's next or whatever. So I remember kind of centering myself on, that's all right. I'm here, I'm excited about this, but I wanted to make the decision a yes, as opposed to, I didn't want either of the other institutions to dictate my relationship with Army. So I had a really cool visit, and I didn't need much pomp and circumstance. I needed to get around that huddle. I got to go to a team meeting, and I was like, "Dude, where have these guys been all my life?" And this guy named Stephen King, I don't know if you know that name, was another linebacker. I heard him speak to the team before spring football, and I was like, "This dude might as well be siphoning thoughts out of my head, because that's how I think. That's the type of guy I want to play with. That's the guy I want to be around." And so I held off that weekend. I didn't want to get so caught up in the moment that I wasn't making a thorough decision. But I knew at that point. I remember standing at Mac's statue and talking to Coach Sullivan. He's like, "What do you think?" And my soul was screaming yes.
Yeah, it was going back to my, when I went there, it was really 2 things that really, really sold me. Was, we had the Kimsey Center when I went, so seeing the Kimsey Center, and then finishing up Foley my year, I was like, man, this is some next level stuff. At least from what I was used to seeing. So, and I was the same way. Nate, I'm a Maryland guy. Okay. So I was being recruited by Navy as well. And I had been around Navy, and I had known a couple guys that had gone to Navy and played at Navy. And over, a couple years there, them coming back home in the same area, talking with them. And there just was not that connection, that whatever you want to call it, as far as like when you heard Stephen King speak, to the team, he was speaking almost as you want to be spoken to. And you were hearing him, and you were listening, and you were hearing him. And that's kind of how I made the determination of, choosing Navy over Army. Was, at the end of the day, you could put me in any job in the world. If I like and enjoy and have camaraderie and esprit de corps with the people I'm around, I'm going to be good at it, because I'm not going to want, 1, it's going to be fun, and 2, I'm not going to let the guys that I enjoy my time with down. And I just didn't have that at Navy. And whether it was the weekend I went or the guys they put me with or whatever, Navy missed the ball on that and Army hit it out of the park. And I remember calling my dad and being like, hey, like, I was still up there. And he was like, let's wait till you come home and then we can discuss, you don't have to make the decision there. But everybody thought I was going to go to Navy because that was in my backyard, 45 minutes away from my house. I just couldn't get over the fact that the way those guys spoke and then the way the guys I paired up with at Army and hearing those guys talk differed so much out of, 5 hours and being military academies. It was just crazy. So I can resonate, or it resonates with me about you hearing someone speak at Army and you being like, yeah, this guy knows what I need and what I need to hear.
Yeah. And I hear that now, like when we talk about recruiting, can we get guys from this part of the country because they got to cross over another academy? And I feel like the right guys, it's hell yes, And if there are guys that are 50-50, then maybe that's just a different analysis. But I think, obviously we have things to offer and there's a history, and I'll put the way we do things up against anybody. And if it's not for somebody in particular, I get that. But man, the value we offer to the right people, the people that are willing to invest to get the ROI on it, I'm second to none. Absolutely.
So you take your visit. You said it was around spring ball, right?
Yeah.
So I imagine within the next couple of weeks, you've got the report to duty 3 months later, right? 2 months later, whatever it is. Was there anything? Was there any kind of mindset change that you had from your visit to when you were going to report? Like, were you concerned? Were you, did anybody give you any kind of idea of what you were going to get into before football? I come from an era where it was not a lot was told about, not a lot of people told us about what we were going to do militarily and how they were going to treat us. It was always, hey, you'll start football, 7 days after you get there, we'll get you all settled in. But there was none of this like, hey, it's boot camp or hey, it's basic training. Nothing like that. So I just thought it was I just always like hearing how the football team or how your mentors or coaches prepared you for shaved head, getting yelled at, just make it to 3 days, 4 days, whatever it was.
So I was super lucky. There was a teacher at my high school who had taught at West Point, and his son was a graduate. So he gave me just incredible insight.
Awesome.
But you're right. I think when you're 18, you're piecing that together, and you're like, well, the guy who hosted me said this, and coach said that. And I've seen a lot of movies, so, I kind of know what to expect. And I'm such a meathead at the core. I try to be well-rounded and grow beyond that. But I literally was like, they'll give you a book that goes, you got to run 2 miles, you got to do some push-ups, you got to do some sit-ups. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go in the sauna at the gym and put my face over the heat for as long as I can. Why I was in that, I don't know. But I just thought that was going to harden me. I remember going to the beach, kind of like that last trip before I took off for our day with my brother. And I was like, I'm going to sit here. I want you to throw sand in my face and yell at me for as long as I can take it. I was like, but when I get up, you need to run. And I remember telling that story a year later, around the football team, maybe during 2 days, sometimes we got downtime. And I thought somebody was going to go, oh yeah, I did this. And to a man, everybody just stares at me like, why would you do that? What were you thinking? Sand in your face?
That's good. That's nice. You had kind of a, outside mentor or just someone who once you got, and it just kind of goes into the bigger fraternity of West Point grads and service, right? That guy saw you were going to West Point, and it probably didn't take much. He probably came to you and was like, "Hey, young Jedi, do you want to know what you're getting yourself into? Can I help you? Can I hook you up with my son? Can we talk? and just make sure you have a good understanding. And that kind of goes to the larger fraternity at Harvard. That's pretty cool that he took time to do that for you.
Yeah, yep. And I think that larger fraternity, I think what I look back on it, and I lucked into it on my way in, but now I try to repay it, is, you don't need another TAC officer from your hometown telling you what to do. Like, you need an older brother, like maybe not even a mentor, but an older brother who just lets you know, yeah, I had a day that bad too, and like can kind of prepare you for those things and go, you are who they want. Now, are you going to like this process? Probably not. But you're not going to get there, not like it, and go, it's because I'm not right for this. It's because I'm not good enough for any of those things. So I was really lucky in that. And I know I didn't earn it. I just got lucky. So I try to repay when I can. I have there's 2 kids from my high school now that are there. One's a football player. One is just, I'm a friend of his family. And I just try to make those phone calls, try to be a resource. Because, man, they're good kids. And I just want them to get as much out of the experience as they can.
Yeah, and you kind of talk about it as far as, give back and to something that's given you so much. And I know that's kind of a reoccurring theme. And some people don't know where to start, whether it's, they think they have to go directly to go see Jen Guzman or go talk to somebody they know and be like, hey, how can I get involved and what can I do to help the program? And that's kind of like, that's kind of what me and Sal started this for was, just to, if there's anybody at West Point or anybody thinking about going to West Point, they can hear guys like us talk about, the struggles or the path and how everybody's is different. And there's infinite amount of ways to get there, get through it. Cause I don't know about you, Nate, but I have plenty of days where I was like, man, I don't know this. I don't know if I know what I was getting myself into. So
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
What are some of the things you try to do or what's something that, you think is important for either old grads or Army footballs to kind of give back to the program?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I feel like, how can we not expect to be the best football alumni in the country? How can we not? Like, I seen guys pop off on social media, and I'm like, I got no room for that, man. You're not a fan. You are a big brother to that kid. Don't talk like that. And until you're as qualified to that coach, I don't need your commentary. Or if you have it, you better be talking face to face with somebody without an audience. So I first let's have the highest expectations, because that's who we are, who we can be. Some of the just little granular things. I try to write 2 letters a week during the season to players. There was one season I was able to do that most every week, so I got almost everybody on the roster. And consciously, I try to, like, if I'm at a game live, I'll find that kid with that energy. Like, he's only getting 7 snaps a game, but damn, he looks the way we looked before we got our time, and I find him on the roster, write that letter, get it to the stadium, and let him know, like, hey, I see that. I noticed that, and really kind of reinforce. The team's so talented now. There are spots where you might be behind a guy who's just physically got a lot of gifts, but damn, if you're playing Army football the way it's meant to be played, like, I don't care if you're 6'4", I'm not going to treat you differently based on your 40 time or whatever. And I think if we can support these kids, they are going through a complicated decision. Most of them are joining the armed forces, making that decision in a more turbulent time than the generation before them, and we owe an honest comparison there. They may have a peer who thinks he's going to go get an NIL deal, and they got to see long term and go, no, I'm going to make this adult decision. I'm going to think 20 some years in the future. And the support of just being there, somebody for them, again, not a TAC officer, but maybe somebody like, I did that. I struggled with that. I came out on the other end, and I have some of those things that maybe we all want. And just be a voice. Like, I reach out to these kids, or a few of them in more contact with others, but I'm telling him, hey, man, great job. The team looks good. He goes, what was it like getting a family in the Army? He just wants to ask that question. There's a million people he can ask that at post, but just give them that dynamic where it's two guys sitting on the front porch. Like, you're not in uniform. You got to report to me. This isn't part of a development thing. You just fire away with your questions. And I think if we can open that door and I don't have to give my speech. I don't have to tell them about my sophomore year and this one time, a great game I had against, no, they don't. I don't think they need that. If they do, they'll ask for it. Just open up that door and let them know, man, all these struggles you got, I swear, blink of an eye, you're going to have some really cool things, including just the brotherhood itself,
Yeah.
Yeah. Nate, Sal here. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah.
I just wanted to pop in. I just wanted to ask you about, are there any recent Army football players? You say you were sending out all these letters. Are there any recent ones that you become really close to and have even followed it even more after the letters?
Yeah. So Ryan Duran is a kid who he graduated last year. He's going to be a GA for us this year. He and I stay in touch. He came out to Las Vegas and didn't tell me, so we had a little riff over that. But he's promised he's coming back out. And you guys know Fabrice Boyne? Fabrice is just a phenomenal kid. He and I have been writing letters back and forth, and then we sort of switched to different methods of communication. And man, he's just got that dog in him. He's got a giant heart, and he's if you just stack where he is, he's behind Andre Carter, which I don't know how much time I'd be getting if I was behind Andre, but Fabrice is playing Army football the way I want it played, the way he should be proud of. His story, his heart, and I've told him, man, I'm just proud to see you carry the torch for us right now.
Yeah. And you kind of bring it up, Nate. I've written a couple letters, and every time I write a letter, I put my phone number on it, right? And I usually get a call.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, sir, I just want to let you know, I'm super busy, but I want to get back to you. I just didn't want to, write a letter and it not get to you. I was like, hey, man, I put it on there for whatever way you want to communicate. That's how we can communicate.
Yeah.
And just know I wanted to write you a letter because I had time and but you brought up, I always thought it was funny because you brought up how we should be for these young men, right? As grads and as big brothers. And we saw it this year where we had two really good players enter the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
And I was blown away at the negativity that these young men were getting on Twitter, social media, from old grads and from some players about not knowing what it is to be a brother and just immediately just going to social media about it. And I was like, man, that is not how you lead. That's not how you lead. That's not how you mentor a kid. Even if you want him to come back, good riddance. We don't want him here anyway. All this stuff. And I was just blown away. Like, man, you're not even gonna take time to know why this guy entered the transfer portal. Like,
yeah.
You have no idea what his story is, what his family situation is, anything. All of a sudden he's entered the transfer portal, hadn't even left, and entered the transfer portal, and now it just when you said, these guys that are going through this decision at 19 years old, most of them are making this decision at 19 years old, maybe 20, right? They're teenagers making this decision that they're going to walk into class their junior year, right? And that's 7 years gone, boom. Junior, senior, 5 years active, 3 years reserve. And these are young men making this decision. And when you said how we should be towards them, I couldn't agree more as far as just be a voice, be a sounding board, and just listen to them and see whatever they want to talk about. Cause you're right. They might bring up the fact that I jumped over a center at one point, but that's on them to do that. Like, you know what I mean? So I just thought, it's, and nobody knows that decision more than guys that have done it before.
Yeah.
So it's important that, if there are Army football players that don't know how to, or don't know where to start, I think you have a great a great TTP, Nate. Just start with a letter. Address it to Kimsey. It'll get to him. And, just, like you said, sometimes, finding that guy that is playing 7 snaps all on special teams, emulating what Army football is, it's a powerful thing. So,
right. Yeah. And I think it accumulates, right? Sometimes we want, and I'm guilty of it. I think that's why I'm talking about it now, is we see something like that and you go, I want to give this kid the 15 years he's missing in this learning curve right now. And I'm going to tell him, and unfortunately I did it to my oldest son, but that's not what he needs. He needs some shelter from this moment. Right. And like, okay, what can I help him discover in this, and I think, come on guys, like this kid did something well enough between football, academics, leadership, and all that. And we said, hey, we think we can turn you into X. Right? We think we can turn you into a dynamic leader of men and women in combat arms, like let's have a little faith in our ability to do that process, right? Whether he checks the same 9 out of 10 boxes you did, or if his look a little bit different, like I talk with the coaches at the prep school, and sometimes like you may get like, if you think typical Army football, we know what that looks like. But I met some guys who had a lot of fight in them. They weren't as vocal, right? Or we had a guy, Scott Kozak, he would sleep until 90 seconds before we walked out. I remember my freshman year thinking, this dude is broken. This ain't ever going to work, and he don't have the heart. And he would play like an animal. And that was him, and I can't hold that against him. So as much as I think I know when somebody goes like, the value of Army football or the academy, they talk about leaving. Yeah, that's a sensitive subject, right? Because in a way, it feels like they're judging what I got out of it, what my process or whatever. But man, let's have some faith in the process. Let's facilitate these kids making a good decision. Let's support them.
Yeah, and I think that's also something that it's important for them to hear, right? Is, hey man, there's you got to check so many boxes, and there's infinite amount of boxes. And none of, there's very few people that have all the same boxes checked.
Right. Right.
And it's important for, not just, and the coaching staff does a great job, and the GAs do a great job. And, there's plenty of guys like you, Nate, that give back and tell the guys like, hey man, like you're doing just fine. All right. I'll never forget. I was a cadet about to commission, and I emailed Lieutenant Colonel Work at the time, Pat Work, now General Work. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to go serve in his battalion. And I just wrote him, hey, what can I do to prepare, all this stuff. I'm still a cadet. I still have 6 months until I graduate. And, I'm writing all this stuff and everything. And I think he writes back like, learn as much as you can at IBOLC. Graduate Ranger School. I think I graduated West Point and didn't know the 5 paragraphs of an op order. I'm doing just, So, it was just I'm sure he did know them. But it was just, at the time it was like, I'm writing this email to, a lieutenant colonel battalion commander who also, I feel comfortable reaching out to, because he went a very similar path as far as Army linebacker at West Point. And he gives me a reality check as far as like, hey, like check the big blocks, IBOLC Ranger. Look, I didn't know the 5 paragraphs from op order. I'm doing just fine. It was just kind of a little humor that was like, all right, maybe I don't need to do everything I can impossibly in these next 6 months, and I'll be just fine. So
yeah,
it was really good to hear. I didn't end up going to that battalion. I ended up going somewhere else, but I ended up actually, I'm wearing it right now, right? The battalion he was the battalion commander for, ended up being a company commander in. So just funny how it ended up working out. But
yeah, Pat is he's on my Rushmore. Like, so I was really close friends with his brother Matt, and so I would hear these stories and then like get the deeper window in through Matt, and got to meet Pat a handful of times, and it was just like, yeah, like that dude is just mental gasoline. Like just you get within 10 feet of him and you can feel the vibration, just sort of the energy, the strength, the commitment, fanaticism he's got.
Yeah,
but
he's
always inclusive. Like as kind of superlative as he is and all that, like I've never seen him talk down to somebody. I've never seen him exclude somebody from the circle and all that. And man, he's
he's accountable and he has high expectations and he knows people will reach those. It's kind of like when they tell you to shoot for the stars, right? That's his expectation is, just like I'm going to expect the world out of you and you'll reach, something higher that you never thought, or you'll reach them because I'll facilitate your success. I mean, just like you talked about, he's on the great brother in arms, great officer, great person.
Yeah.
Definitely you can feel the intensity when you get around him. So, but yeah, the draw it back to, okay. Now, were you, when did you meet Matt? At West Point?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and were you guys classmates?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know.
He was one of those ones. I think one of the cool things, and this doesn't make any sense looking forward. You can only talk about it looking back, but like, you remember those sort of the first time you met somebody in Beast, you might hear them say something and you're not allowed to say anything to them or whatever, but you go, that sticks out. Yeah, Matt was one of those people. He was in my Beast company, and I remember him like riding people for not lifting hard enough during Beast. And I was like, this is my guy. I hope he doesn't point a finger at me, but like he's like catching up with his buddies from the prep school, and he was like, what the, like that dude was like, oh, I'm glad we're stretching today, not lifting that, like, so I was like, there's my partner. So we lifted together for probably most our freshman year. And I remember one of those first times, I'm always, part of my personality is part of our dynamic in the brotherhood. You're always running my working hard enough, right? Is that guy who's got it, who's our starter, who's doing everything right. Can he look at me and go, all right, you're keeping up, kid? And Matt and I worked out, and I probably threw up 45 days straight from it. And so Stephen King, guy who gave the great speech, takes me aside at Buckner one day. He goes, Nate, the goal of working out should not be to throw up every time. There are some negatives to that too. But I was like, I'm not going to flinch. Matt wasn't going to go, no, slow down, easy. It's hot today, So we pushed right to that brink. And man, I'm so grateful to him. And there's a dozen other guys that are kind of on that list that so good at pushing you, because you couldn't lose an ounce of their respect. You couldn't let them down. You couldn't fail to hit their standard. That's
funny. You talk about that first time you hear somebody at Beast. I just had to, I just went to my buddy's wedding. He finally got married, and a buddy that I met in Beast, and I wrote, like, we became friends after I heard him say something in Beast, and I was like, all right,
yeah,
that's my dude. Like, that's good. And I was the Matt in this situation from prep school, right? So I was like, and he came on anyway. He played linebacker. It was awesome. It was funny you just saying the same thing, because I literally just wrote that on like how we met for whatever the bride wanted us to do. We made sure we did it. But that's funny. So you talk about, so Matt, your lifting buddy. What's the culture like, and what's the dynamic? That's, you're coming in at a peak time, right, for Army football. One of my mentors, Ben Kawika. To this day, still talk to him. He's been on here a couple times. I know Adisa King, another one of my mentors, another intense guy. And we've kind of heard from them. But what's the culture of Army football? I know we've kind of heard it about, not letting each other down. You're working yourself, to keep each other. But, who's leading the locker room? And just kind of how are you taking all this in as an underclassman?
So the gift of my timing there, like, was that I got to show up. I think we had really strong leaders, and things just came together. I was on that '96 team that went to the Independence Bowl, so 10-2, and I don't know if I won 10 games in all of high school. Like, so to get to a place where it was like you got to do X, Y, Z, and like, people were doing it. I loved it. Like, you didn't have to echo. The captain didn't have to echo twice. Like, everybody on that team was a leader, and some exceptions maybe, but small. And by comparing to any other team I'd ever been on, none. Guys were great, and you were getting the reward for that. And when that starts to happen, I've told the story a couple of times. I got a note in my locker one day that says, "The key is you. The key is today." That was Bob Sutton, just a little motivational thing. And it wasn't. I'm 120 dudes on the roster. Like, I'm on the scout team and all that. But I read it and like my soul just vibrated, because and part of that is the fact that what we were doing was working. And to get into an environment where you come and you bleed and you sweat and you give all of this for your small piece of whatever the team needs, but you get to see the team win. You get to this game that you love goes the way you've always dreamt it would go. Like, that was such a beautiful thing for me. It was a dichotomy for me because I never got on the field, but it really tested how much do you love this game, and how willing to be a part of this team are you going to be, or is it you only be part of the team under these conditions, So both those things really got tested, but I just love that game so damn much, and I loved Army football that I remember being, that like legs quaking, you can barely walk down from the weight room. I got throw up in my throat, about to lose it or whatever. And I sit down in the locker room and music's playing, and I'm still on the scout team, so I'm not in meetings. And I'm by most accounts, if a doctor looked at me, I'd look sick. And I was like, there's no place in the world I'd want to be. Like, this is it. I'm 7th string on a depth chart right now, but I know I'm headed in the right direction, in the right lane. Like, I'll do it all day.
That's I've never heard that quote. I don't know if that's something Coach Sutton is known for. The key is you. The key is today. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty. I always enjoy hearing things and seeing things that are just so simple that can make such an impact, because that's what what you need to hear when you need to hear. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think Coach Sutton is a guy that we really don't talk enough about on this podcast, and the impact that he had on the program. I don't think that. I mean, just the way he was able, the mind of Coach Sutton, right, and just his demeanor too, right? But you guys wanted to play for a guy like that, right, Nate? Can you talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, Coach Sutton, I think unfortunately got a raw deal. Like, he was let go following my senior season. Now, and I understand the people that made that decision said we think this football team should have won more games. I understand that. There wasn't a day where I didn't think Coach Sutton was bringing it. And then for the dudes that go, I was 4th string and we didn't win because Sutton didn't know. Dude, Sutton is a pro. Sutton has done this at the highest level, under the most scrutiny than any of us. We don't have a player that had a playing career as good as Sutton's coaching career. So I am not a fan when people want to chip away at that or use it as a way to sort of justify what they didn't achieve. Like, and that's a good man. Like, I connected with him probably 2014. And other than the fact that he told me I looked skinny, like, we were right back at that point. He cared about my experience. He cared about our relationship in that point. And he's told me, like, hey, if you're in touch with any of the guys, give him my number. How's so-and-so doing? Like, that's a good man. And this is a tough game where, I can lose my starting spot at any given time. Coaches can get moved around and all that. But, man, if we're not giving him his due for what he did for us and the time he bled for the cause, then I'll call us out on that. Like, he earned his.
When
and you went back to it, and that's what Coach Sutton. He wasn't just an X's and O genius. Like, he remembered, he remembers people. He remembers things about him. And that's what, made, I never actually played for him, but I got to get recruited by him. And I got to talk to him a couple times, was Coach Bobby Ross. Like, the guy didn't forget anything about anybody. Like, you introduced yourself, you told him who your mom and dad was. You see him at spring ball after a summer or after a football season. Say, "Oh, Steve, how's Ron and Patty doing?" It's like, what? How much space do you have up there to remember all that stuff?
Wow.
And that's what kind of just hearing from how people talk about Coach Sutton is he's a guy that, you love to play for him because he truly cared about you and not just about winning, losing. He knew, he knows the recipe to a good organization is, treating people dignity and respect and making sure they know they care and you're going to get the most out of them. It's just,
yeah.
And again, you have the direct link to him, but that's just what, we've heard from several players under Coach Sutton.
Now, you guys know about his whispering?
No.
So when he would huddle the team at the end of practice, he would all right, bring us in. He'd talk admin for a little bit, and slowly his voice would go down and down. It would be like, so on Saturday when we play Marshall, and there's like 130 dudes out there. So I'd be in the back like, what did he say? And it was like 2 weeks before I could look around. I didn't want to screw anything up, right? So it was like 2 weeks before I could look around and try to see if somebody else was having it. And nobody could hear. And so sophomore year, I get a little closer. Junior year, senior year, I was I'm making eye contact. I'm right here. I can't hear what you're saying. It was his way of pulling it in and trying to get everybody really tight and focused.
What do you think he was saying?
Oh, it was always good. He loved, he would pull from wherever. He would pull from Lao Tzu. He would pull samurai warriors and stuff like that. Muhammad Ali. So yeah, he had a good. I think he had a good sort of bag of tricks for pushing buttons. But honestly, man, the key is you. The key is today. I took to a training class at work about that about 6 months ago, and I was like, this is my quote because somebody kind of had the audacity to say this about me when it wasn't true, and I had the audacity to believe it. And it's really, it's up to you. What do you want to do?
You took that somewhere 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Nate, okay, so we're talking, this is your freshman year, you get that quote.
Yeah.
Right? 96?
96.
96 or 95? 96.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it was fall in 95. Wait, no. Fall in 96.
Fall 96.
Yeah, 96
freshman
season.
year.
Yeah.
You get this, okay? It's 2022, so this is the beginning of this year you use it.
This was October of last year, November of last year.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it was the way these things work. I shared it with a group of, there's maybe 30, 40 of us or whatever. And people were like, I love that. Oh my gosh, man. I'm having a bad day. I'm having a tough week, but I'm using that. And I text Coach Sutton. I was like, hey, it's been a long damn time, but I want you to know, I remembered that and it just changed, the air in a room decades later.
Yeah. And you're not still playing football, are you, Nate?
No.
Well, that's the cool thing about it, right? It's something he gave you as a tool that you use in your career to get the most out of people. I just think that's man, that's 26 years. I don't know.
I feel like for anybody listen, and I'm always kind of constantly trying to live my life in a way that raises my three sons, but that's why you don't half-ass anything. That's why you don't negotiate with right? Because every day there's a reminder, there's a quote in your locker or whatever. Let me toss that away. But what if you don't? What if you hang on to it and somehow a quarter of a century later, it ties you to a whole new group of people? And there's lots of places where that's valuable. I don't mean to say Army football's got the corner on it, but damn, we got a good position on it.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's what gave it to you. You don't know, you didn't hear it somewhere else. You didn't hear it. You didn't read it in some Harvard law. You didn't, it didn't come from, a different program. It came from Army football, and that's your story, man.
Yep.
So,
yep.
One other thing I like to talk about before we move any further is the dynamic, and I always like hearing this is how you go from, right? It's the cool thing about Army football, right, is, and West Point in general, and is you're a leader amongst leaders, right? Or you're a follower with leaders or whatever. And at some point you go from underclassmen, and then that torch is passed, and now you've got to kind of you are now the leader. And through your 2 years there, 3 years, whenever you become an informal leader or you have the actual torch now, it is your leadership style that's going to change that room, change that team, change your company, whatever. So what things did you pull as an underclassman that you love to keep as an upperclassman? And then how did you come into that informal role of now you are, this team's going to go as far as we're going to take them?
Yeah. Great questions. I'll say a couple of the things that really stand out were, I remember Mike Sullivan talking about how we should treat freshmen. I think this was I don't think this was during my freshman year, because it was sort of, I remember not wondering about how we're going to get treated, but, and he said, I don't need the hazing. I don't need you riding a kid or whatever, just to toughen them up. They'll get plenty of that. And he tells me a story about he's doing scout team and kind of jogs in and doesn't kind of avoids contact with a running back. Running back grabs him by the face mask and goes, hit me. That is your job. And if you don't, I'm not ready on Saturday. Don't ever do that again. And I'll say, all right, yeah, maybe that's a better way to do it. And I always liked that. I feel like there's that harassment and all that too. That's for other dudes. That's fraternity at State College and all that. I want to keep the bar high. That's where my energy's going. And I feel like if you're putting energy somewhere else, you're probably going to fall behind where you need to put it. My leadership style, man, this is going to sound crazy, man. I could feel the ghost watching me. Not just the Pat Works, not just the upperclassmen when I was there, but I was like, Hollader is watching me run this sprint. I'm not going to embarrass myself in front of a legend and a hero and a ghost. I'm just not. And we had, there's a handful of guys I hope end up hearing this story probably, but going into Piat of my senior year, I showed up late, and it was literally we had a 4:30 formation. I thought we had an 8:30 formation, and this is pre-cell phone. So once I screwed up the information, so I showed up late, and there was 8 other dudes that showed up late, and coach was like, "What? You guys don't want to play Army football?" And I was like, first of all, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You're gonna punch me in the face for being late? That's all right. Your move, but don't question why I'm here. And they're like, "You guys that were late, you got to run." I was like, "I'm here to run. What are you talking about?" And it was like, "Okay, you got to run all the way to the top of the stadium and then come down and push the whooping stick," which is like a 4x4 stick. You had to push it 100 yards, maybe 200 back. And I was like, all we're going to do is get better. I'm out here getting stronger. I'm not afraid of you. And I remember telling them, they're watching. Hollider's watching. Dawkins is watching. I'm not blinking for a second. Let's go. And 2-3 dudes are like, yeah. And then everybody else is like, it still sucks, including the 2 dudes that I made late because they picked me up at the airport. So I always just felt there was an accountability there that I didn't have to come up with some creative type of leadership or, why am I going to do this? I was trying to honor the brotherhood day in, day out. It was just too much bigger than me for me to give it any less than that.
Yeah, it's actually pretty unique as far as going back as, we've heard some guys talk about how, when they were freshmen, you had the seniors that they looked up to and they wanted to make them proud with the way, but bringing it all the way back to the Goats and the Dawkins and the Holliders and the, and the Glens and the Davises and all that. That's pretty, I can imagine that being pretty powerful because they are around. They're in the stadium. That they built that stadium.
Yeah, yeah.
They're the ones that let everybody that we know or ever even came in contact with. They're the ones that taught them how to do it. So that's pretty cool. That it makes me think about how now as an active duty guy, as I continue to progress, and basically mentor young lieutenants and young NCOs, something to give them to think about, because that's pretty unique, pretty cool that you were able to think about that when you were 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and that's what kept you to always execute at such a high level.
Yeah, no doubt. Guys, just to flip it, we have a comment from a viewer right now, and it's just about current college football and about realignment, and Army's the only academy not in the conference. Why can't the media needle like Notre Dame options? I don't know, Nate, you didn't experience Conference USA football, did you?
I did. I played my junior and senior year in Conference USA.
Okay. Would you like to weigh in on this? So what that experience was like? Maybe in what I think Army right now as an independent is, you never know, USC and UCLA joining, a bigger Power 5 conference. What's going to go on? We don't know what's going to go on. What Notre Dame's going to do, we don't know Notre Dame's next move. But I think Army's going to position themselves in the best possible way for them to succeed. And I think right now independent is where it's at. So,
yeah, I'd agree. And I think right now there was a long time we were going out and playing teams that were better than their reputation, and we were just – it's a real challenge, right? And you get beat by a team that doesn't have maybe the marquee name, that can be demoralizing, but damn, that's a good team. I think for the last number of years, we've done a really good job, getting some marquee opponents that we have a real shot to compete with. We've beaten a few. We got our opener this year against like a Coastal Carolina. That's a great program to go butt heads with. And I also think we're getting some of these teams where if you got to compete against that level every week, it's a harder, different animal. So I think we've done that really well. I kind of trust the powers that be. That being said, man, every chess piece on the board is in play right now. Where we go next is I honestly don't know. I kind of defer on that one, but I think, man, I'll put our guys up against anybody. If we're going to make that move and they got to do it every week against bodies that size, skill level that high, then we've got to make some adjustments, and we've got to say, okay, how do we recruit to get more depth, right? And I think realistically, we can't make that change because that's where college football is going and not expect the academy to adapt, or make that change, not adapt, and then expect, okay, well, we just got to gut our way through this. Now, there are powerful forces at play. If we want to make that move, we need to make some adjustments with it.
Yeah, Christian's saying he doesn't want to lose recruiting advantage because we're not in a conference.
I think I don't think the recruiting advantage of being in a conference or not in a conference affects West Point. I think our recruiting advantages are what we bring to the table, just in general. But what's the benefit of going to a conference other than, are we going to get nationally ranked? I mean, we play top 10 teams every year. That's going to, we play Air Force, Navy. They're usually pretty good. We have top 10 teams we play, top 25 teams we play. Our schedule has, I would say our schedule has everything a conference, within a conference has, other than like a top, it's not an SEC.
Yeah.
It's not a Big Ten, but if, unless we're going to join that conference, why not just stay independent and choose who we play when we play them? Because I think that's smart for us as an independent. I mean, unless we're trying to win a national championship, we need to enter the SEC, the Big Ten, or I think in 10 years it's going to be it's going to be the AFC, NFC of college football, where Big Ten's going to have 20, and I think the SEC is going to have 20, and you're either going to get an invitation to play at the table, or you're going to be playing for second place. Well, really, I guess fifth place or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I think that's where teams are heading, because they know they can't get to the national championship unless they, unless they play SEC or Big Ten right now. I mean, look at how the people are voting. So
yeah,
anyway.
I think it's money, like he's saying. I think it may be money could be involved, but
that's
obviously
that's always good. If we join a conference and like we're gonna make you're gonna make 50 more million a year, then we're gonna join a conference. That's a really I hate to simplify it, but that's what the powers to be. I mean,
but are you making that money joining the AAC? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think so. And here's another thing, Steven. He said it in the comments real quick, and Nate, you can even comment on this. When you have a player like Andre Carter and the talent that Andre Carter has, and if he was able to get drafted in the first round this year where he's projected at, that certainly is going to increase your recruiting, right? That's certainly going to help your visibility and your recruiting, and tell kids, hey, you can go to academies and make it to. There is a road to the pros from the academies, and a legitimate one. If Andre gets even drafted, period. Even if he gets drafted first, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever round he is, I mean that will also certainly help too. I think.
Yeah. You know who else I think is a great story, and that is John Radigan.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? Like that's a dude who wasn't. Andre's been kind of highlighted because man, look at that frame and the way he moves and stuff like that. John had to put in his time, but damn, when he did, he was patient. He knew the system, and there aren't a lot of schools where with 1 year in the spotlight, 1 year with that starting spot, you get a shot at the NFL. Like, I think he's a hell of a story.
It's a good point. I was in contact with John this week, and he wants to come back on the podcast soon. So hopefully we can get him before preseason camp starts. That would be great. John's been a big supporter of the Black Knight Nation podcast. And that's a great point, Nate. I mean, you look at John and what him, Cole, Christensen, Elijah Riley are doing right now, Brett Toth.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly a brotherhood out there in the NFL for Army. And we know Steve Ali might have retired, right? But he's still got, what he did in the NFL and what he did for those guys to pave the way is also, not to be forgotten either.
I mean, Colin Mooney was up there, he did it. Josh McNary was there. I mean, we've had guys pretty steadily in the league since, the 2010, 2008 timeframe. Obviously we've had the most, it's also gotten a lot, not easier, it's not easy to go to the league, but, just like guys are getting chances in their season. Like, I mean, to have a guy like Radigan come back to the academy and tell, guys, hey man, I played special teams. I started 1 year, and I just believed. I believed in myself. I had mentors believe in me, and I kept working every single day, and I achieved the dream, his dream. I think that's, something super powerful. And guys can see it. And, the other thing those guys have is, those guys can tell great players, hey man, I wanted to leave some days too. Some days it was really sucky when I had 4 WPRs and I only have 5 classes. Okay. And then I got to go and I got to do off season, we're not even in season. I got to do off season workouts. And that's the highlight of my day after, whatever, and it's like, it humanizes these, because there's guys that go to the academy now that look at Radigan like, God, how could I ever be a Radigan? Right. There's linemen that look at, Ali, like, how did he play 7 years in the league after going to Ranger school, 15-month deployment, being in the Ranger regiment, all this kind of stuff. Right. And they can just tell you, look, I wanted to leave after T week as well. It was terrible, but my brothers kept me here. And I stayed the path. I stayed to the process, and I believed in myself, and I had brothers that believed in me, and just one step in front of the other every single day. And it got me to where I wanted to go. So I think that's also, it's really cool. I mean, as an Army football player and as a guy, I love turning on the TV and seeing Army football players out there running down the field or playing, Cole Christensen, all those guys. It was fun last year. It added an extra, extra element. And I didn't know it was going to be Ali's last year, but Ali retired as a Raven. I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. Like, come on, man. Like, that's pretty cool. We were captains together. So I'm super proud of the way the program's going, the way it's being ran, how those guys are not kind of stiff arming the program once they get to the league. Yeah. That's a huge, proud big brother moment. So it's pretty cool.
No doubt. Nate, I wanted to talk to you about, you guys have had a great conversation. I'm just listening and just being engaged in it, but I also wanted to talk to you a little about life after football for you. Not so much maybe the military side, if you'd like to talk about that, but I remember talking to, I believe, Dustin Plumidor about this. Did you get into a little MMA too after football? Can you talk about that a little bit and how far that went and your interest in that?
So, I think after football, I was like, I want to be a grown up now and I'm going to do all these other things, but you still got the bug, man. If it's in your blood, it's in your blood. And, I was like, I'll do this. I'll punch a bag or maybe I'll learn this or whatever. And I just kept wanting to break down whatever that boundary was till it got, my friend would be like, I found these guys in a gym and they'll come to my garage and fight you. And I was like, all right, yeah. Cause my buddy was my trainer at the time and we wear headgear and stuff like that. We do what you call smoker matches. So nobody's getting hurt. And there's a level of respect where I have no desire to punch somebody who's down or whatever. And I think most people do, but, man, it was fun. I got to watch my game film again, and have something to get better at and do with my buddies and do with, somebody I respected and work and art. Now, that being said, did I do those things? Yeah. And that was kind of farther than I ever thought I would go. It's farther than maybe most go, but there's a world beyond that. You know what I mean? There's plenty of dudes with their ears worked over that would fold me up pretty quickly. So I'm not going to pretend to be somebody I'm not.
Did you take it? How far did you take it? Was it did you have any amateur matches or no?
So, no, I never, none of the lights. So I did a bunch of smoker matches and then I was training I was going to do an amateur one in Vegas and I had moved on to a bigger gym and the guy was like, come train with the pro team. So it's a bunch of dudes that were on TV in the UFC and stuff like that. And it was two gyms merged. And the guy who is unfortunately passed on was Tompkins was the trainer. And he was like, listen, anybody who merged, if you didn't come from the pro team at the other gym, this is not for you. But we can talk about that another time. But this is really for strictly pro fighters. And I remember having my mouthpiece in. I was like, if he comes over here and grabs me by the collar, I'll leave. But if not, I'm going to keep riding this thing out. So I got to roll with a bunch of dudes that were, UFC TV. And that was a cool experience.
Nice. Yeah. There is a former Army football player that is a amateur MMA fighter right now, Cole Masick. He played linebacker and fullback for Army. Yeah, he's doing in Pennsylvania. He's doing some MMA. So I just I know that I remember Dustin talking about it every once in a while. And it's just interesting how that kind of was your fix, so to speak, after football for a little bit, right?
Yeah. And there's a guy named Brian Jensen who's also in Vegas and he teaches now. I don't think he's going full speed, getting punched in the face anymore, but a lot of jiu-jitsu and it's a cool segue.
No doubt. Steve, take it away.
No, I picked up golf, Nate.
Yeah. That's civil.
No, it's just, it's not to bring up a story, but it's what our veterans have problems with, right? Once you retire after giving your entire life to the military and then kind of finding that, that next thing, that next purpose. I know a lot of guys that struggle with it, that don't know what to do. Their whole life was Army. Something similar, Nate, I was this Army linebacker, larger than life, and I went to Ranger School and I lost 48 pounds, right? And I was, 188 pounds again. And I was like, oh my God, my girlfriend's going to break up with me when she sees me. Like, I am not big. How am I going to protect her? Like all this, like I got to get back in the gym, like all this stuff. She ended up marrying me. I ended up marrying her. So it worked out. But it like you said, you found something that eased the transition of no more football, in your life. And that can be hard. I mean, I picked up golf, but I also played flag football leagues. I still, to this day, Nate, I find, I'm on a Facebook, neighborhood Facebook that's like, hey, it's a sports group. Like, we're playing tennis this week. I'm like, sign me up. My kids are going to watch me beat this 50-year-old in tennis. I don't care. Like, because, and Nate, I've got 3 boys, 7, 5, and a newborn. And I think it's important for them to see me compete. Like, I remember growing up watching my dad play basketball, and it was just, for me, it was like, my dad's still getting after it at 40 years old. I think it's important. So I think that's really cool that you just started punching a bag one day and this guy was like, come on, let's go. Let's go do this. And we're just going to fight in your garage. I think that's my favorite part of the story, just fighting in the garage.
That's what the Black Knight Nation podcast, right, Steve?
That's right. That's actually when we do the in-person podcast, that's what we do. We go to the garage and fight afterwards. Nate, are you a Raiders fan now? Or
absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I was a Raiders
fan. You guys
fan,
brought in the most revenue last year with that new stadium.
Yeah, it's a show. And Army's coming out to play in a couple of years.
Really? UNLV. Yeah, UNLV.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I would
at that stadium?
Yep. Yeah, make that trip. It'll be worth it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna spend a lot of money renting some space in that stadium to throw a good time for every Army football fan I can get.
Well, that's gonna have to be on the calendar. What is it? 2024?
I think it's 24. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's a little ways down. Yeah.
I will most likely, hopefully, I don't know where I'll be. KD, maybe KD major. I don't know. We'll see. I got CGSC next year, so that'll be a good year to go to games. This year's a good year to go to games. So, I mean, I got to make that happen. I don't know. Did you end up going to the golf outing at all?
No. I didn't this year. I am in a new job, and just this first year, I'm just paying dues, and there's so many places I got to catch up. I just couldn't add the extra travel right now.
And so you went back home, right? You work in Vegas now. You still live there?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So when I got out of the Army, the last half of the Army, I was a single dad. So I had a 3-year-old when I moved back. So it's like you can look around the country. There's tons of places with opportunity and cool cities and stuff like that. But I was like, I'll take the built-in family support, like knowing the town, knowing the city. And Vegas is so great. Like, it didn't drag me back. Like, I was excited about it. I love it here.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Steve, I'll tell you right now, Black Knight Nation is going to be present for our Army's opener at Coastal Carolina. I got some seats. And we're going to try to get a photographer down there too. Nate, you were talking about how good of it. I mean, I can't believe that game is on ESPN Plus. I was hoping it was on like at least ESPN2, maybe ESPNU, but that game's on ESPN Plus. But we'll be down there. We'll be getting some live video. It's right around the corner, right? I mean, this season's right around the corner, and man, it's been really fun, Nate, talking to you and hearing the stories. I mean, such a great perspective on just everything from life, football, Army, and wow. You guys did a great job. Steve, you could do this all by yourself from now on, I think.
I just, I think it's, and I'm gonna, kind of re-energize me to reach out more to players. Nate's just hearing Nate talk about the commitment to, it's important for us to, make sure these guys understand. Like, look, man, like, one, if I could do it, I know they can do it. and two, what do you want? What do you want to talk to me about? Just as free chicken, right? Like, don't obviously we have to build that relationship first and just reach out, but there's it's just I had I don't know if Nate, I don't know if you remember Colonel Polka at all. Colonel Gene Polka.
Yeah.
Still very much so. Huge mentor of mine. Didn't get a chance to go see him when I was stationed at the 101st. He was only 4 hours away. Just never made it happen. COVID happened towards the end, and it was just kind of, just didn't work out. And I tried to see him on the way out, but I'll tell you what, man, that guy, he was as close to making me feel comfortable to talk to him about anything personally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, that I had that was a senior officer. And it's hard to do that when, they're a senior officer, right? Like, it's kind of difficult. So I try to be like that. I get frustrated sometimes. Like, man, just tell me what's going on. And people don't want to tell you because you're the commander or you're the, you know what I mean? Like, you outrank, you are the senior officer. I'm the senior officer. I'm like, man, how'd you get that out of him? He wouldn't talk to me. Sir, like, nobody really wants to talk to you. Sorry. Like, fuck. All right. Well, but it's been great, Nate. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm glad we got to finally link up. So I know we have a lot of, I don't want to call them mutual friends, but mutual associates, right? Because they outrank me and stuff. So but it's
those walls come down easy though, and I'm a big believer. Like, probably my one regret, sort of, in handling my post-football Army football, is just not reaching out sooner, and not knowing how to, like. I think it was hard for me, like, I was afraid I wouldn't have credibility. And I don't think I articulated that at the time, but then I just started. So the name Aaron Alexander?
Yes.
So I didn't know Aaron Alexander yet, but I knew people that knew him, whatever. And I was I was like, I just walked over to him and, like, said my name. He's like, oh yeah, I know. And, like, we've been friends ever since. And, like, I'd say 9 times out of 10 it's that easy. And if it's not, then all right, so be it. Like, there's nothing lost in that. And usually it'll probably come around later.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I do have I do remember going up to one senior officer as a lieutenant and be like, oh, sir, Army football, how's it going? Like, I'm not here to talk to you about that right now. Oops. I done fucked that up. All right.
But I'll put this out in the universe to anybody that ever puts themselves out to, especially to, like, a younger guy, because I think that's where it's almost more helpful. And you get a bad response, I will buy you a drink to hear the story. Like, I'll put that out in the universe. I think it's just worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I hope that some of the current players, it's summer, right? They're not they haven't started preseason practice yet, so maybe they catch some of this podcast and take what you guys were talking about of the brotherhood and letters and just the communication.
When does Piad start now? Piad should be starting here soon.
Yeah, I heard they're starting early August preseason.
What?
It's usually 30 days from the start of your first game is when you can practice by the NCAA. So September 3rd, maybe August 2nd or 3rd, they're going to start practicing. So, I mean, they're lifting. Steve, I don't know if you're catching the lifting videos on Twitter, but
but they're probably in Piad then, because the Piad is the last 3 weeks prior to the season, the 30-day mark, I think.
Yeah.
I just remember driving up to West Point for Piad my senior year because I had just come off, knee surgery. So I was, like, coming back to the academy. And it was, like, the same day my grandmother died. And it was, like, early July, mid-July. And so I remember getting back to work early. So, but I'm glad they're working out. It's exciting. It's about to be the best time of year. I'm super excited about it. I got Nate's number now. I can't wait to text him, after when I see something and just be like, Nate, believe that shit? That was a great play.
Right.
So,
but a lot of Isaiah Alston, Terrell Robinson, Jacoby Buchanan, those type of guys. Tyler 187 pounds he's up to now playing quarterback. I don't know, maybe he was like 160 when he came into West Point, somewhere around there. So
that'll help him stay healthy. Hopefully, you know.
Yeah,
he took some hits and he paid for them last year. So it's you know, extra cushion will help. So
it'll be a fun team to watch, and can't wait to do the reviews too, Steve. The game reviews, and maybe we can even have Nate's perspective on there if he open to having that too on some post games and just some breakdowns and stuff like that. We'd like to do that stuff. Hey, we're at 98 podcasts right now, so 2 more to 100, and this has been one of the best ones we've had on. Nate, we really appreciate your time tonight, all the time you had tonight, and Steve, I mean, once again, thank you so much for stepping in and taking over the big chair tonight. The big chair.
So. Nate, I really appreciate it, man. Enjoyed linking up, and look forward to continuing on.
Absolute pleasure, guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, talk soon.